One thing to keep in mind when you're doing these virtual sets and you've got your shows coming together and you've got several characters that may be going into the sets, or you're doing repetitious shows, you've got to try to keep it looking interesting. And that's even if you have 2 or 3 different camera angles for the sets that you've purchased or have built. And if you're doing this in software and you don't have camera moves to deal with, you have to kind of fake it. And this really works well if you're shooting and compositing all in a really high definition, and then you're exporting out in standard HD, like a 720p. And for example, here I've got this shot, and I've got several things going on here. I've got all the composites in here. I've got reflections. I've got the content in this screen, and I've created this quick scene here. I've got this scene playing. She's just walking off the stage here, and this is fine maybe for one shot while you're getting introduced or something, but it gets boring after a while if you have to see a lot of the same person or in the same angle and whatnot. So what I like to do is do a few simulated pans and zooms, and if you have enough resolution to work with, that's great. If you don't, then this isn't really going to work. That's why I usually like to work in like 1080p, and then I can always scale it, down res it, whatever, to 720 for delivery. But with that being the case, if I did have that much room to work, then I would do something like this. What I've done is I've taken this comp, I've created a new comp, just in blank comp in After Effects, and I brought that comp in, my virtual set comp, and now I can treat it like a layer, and I can do other things with it, such as scale it up, so I can work with it here, and I can move its position. So with this being the case, you can see that I've got a little bit of room to work with this set, and I just set a couple keyframes. I know how long this is going to run. It's going to run to here. And then at this point, I'm zooming in on it and just moving it over a bit, just so we see the frame of the screen behind her. There we go. So there's a couple things I can do here. I can just let that run so it comes to this point and then cut to another camera or cut to a different scene, or I can bring this up where it ends a little earlier and then do something like this where I ease in on this so it looks like the camera comes in and stops a bit while she continues to walk. So to see one rendered out, so we can see we've got a little bit of a different camera move here. It keeps it a little more interesting. It looks like we're actually on a set and we're having a camera move in there. And that keeps it interesting and keeps your focus on the content that is most important. And that's the person talking. That's the content on the screen, the name of the show or whatever. So that's really important. If you want to take it a step further, I like to do different moves in 3D. And you have to be careful with this because you are working with 2D elements. And if you do too much, then it starts looking phony. So there's only a certain amount of play that you have here. But we can do something that looks a little more like it's been dollied. And that's by taking that layer, converting it to 3D in After Effects, just clicking on the 3D box here, and then changing some of the Y rotation, which is the axis that's straight up and down, and slightly changing that while we're zooming and panning over gives us kind of a dolly effect there, at least in the lens. And I'll show you that rendered out here. So again, if you're running high definition, you can get away with this. If you up-res, low-res files too much, they just won't look right. But these are a couple tricks that you can use to give a little more interest to those static screenshots that you have and the static camera angles that they give you in a lot of these virtual sets. So that gives you a little bit of play there.